Hey everyone, Blake here, representing the paid search team with Rise Interactive, and I want to take a little bit of time today to talk to you about holiday planning, holiday strategy, and to kind of give a few tips on how I personally am thinking about my accounts and my planning and preparation going into what's looking to be a pretty tumultuous holiday season. But before we get into that, just a quick blurb about myself. I'm Blake. I've been with Rise for about 5 years now. Paid search the whole way, and I've touched kind of a really wide variety of accounts here during my time. I've done ecom. I've done many different kinds of kind of CPL based clients. But over the past 3 years in particular, I've kind of carved out a niche for myself, tackling some of our highest touch, highest complexity, largest SKU count ecom clients. And so basically, especially for the last three holiday periods, I've gotten a pretty good front row seat at kind of what makes or breaks a large ecom account during the holiday period. So I want to highlight just really quick a few of the results that I personally have been a part of here at Rise for the last 3 years. Last three holiday periods, I've been on three different retail clients, e-commerce clients. Again, these are kind of higher touch, higher complexity accounts. And each one of those 3 years, we've driven really tremendous results. So all the way back in 2017, working for kind of a leading apparel retailer then, we managed to scale revenue by 26% with only a 5% year-over-year increase in spend. That was excellent performance. The following year in 2018, we were working for a very large arts and crafts retailer. Sort of a similar trend, but even magnified. We were driving 60% increased revenue year over year for about only 20% spend increase. And then the best results actually came last year in 2019. I was helping out on a very large shoe brand at the time, and remarkably, we were able to drive 75% greater revenue year over year on virtually no increased spend, on just a 2% increase. So virtually the same amount of spend for a 75% revenue gain was really exemplary performance, and we were very, very proud of that. But I don't mean this just to kind of brag on personal accolades. What I want to say is that this approach that I have kind of carved out here and that I'm going to present a little bit has driven results for many different clients here, three different clients in 3 years. And each of the clients has exhibited this kind of performance, right? Where they're driving more revenue year over year. And it's not just because we're investing a ton more, right? We're using our dollars more efficiently. And that's the big thing that I want to talk about. And really, that's what Rise is all about, right? Rise does not tend to bulldoze through kind of our problems, even if the brands are very large. We're all about smarter allocation, especially when it comes to that year-over-year look, and using the data at hand to make effective plans for how we'll spend and how we'll tackle the current holiday period. So there are three kind of main things that I really want to drive home with this presentation. And I'll take one step back really quick before we get into specifics. And I'll say this is actually a presentation or very similar to a presentation that I gave to the paid search team at Rise just a few weeks ago. So really what this presentation is not striving to do is to tell you like what's going to happen this holiday season for obvious reasons. I think there's a great deal of uncertainty, and that would be a little bit foolish. And it also is not very prescriptive. I mean, different clients have different needs, and I'm not here to tell you what worked for my account specifically will work for your account specifically, but rather I want to be kind of cluing you in on how I am advising the search team to think about things, the framework we're building for thinking about preparation for holidays, the framework we're building for thinking about how we budget for holidays, that sort of thing. So hopefully some of these broader tips you can take and apply to virtually any account that you're working on. The first and most important thing that I want to highlight is that timing is absolutely everything in holiday. Really, if you don't take anything else away from this presentation, remember that timing is absolutely everything. I think it's a little bit easy for some advertisers to get caught up on the holiday period. I'm going to launch a bunch of new keywords, right? And they're all going to be highlighting the deals we're running, and where they're going to be going after gift guide shoppers, or so on and so forth. Or I'm going to launch a bunch of new ad copy, and the ad copy is going to be festive and it's going to speak to all these new offers and deals that we're running. But really, I care, and I think all paid search employees should care a lot less about what you're running and a whole lot more about when you're running. And so that can mean a few different things. The first thing is very obvious, right? Which is know when Black Friday and Cyber Monday fall. It's again, this is a very obvious thing, but you'd be surprised by how many people tend to overlook this. Black Friday is not a fixed date every year. It's relative to Thanksgiving, obviously. So this year, Black Friday will fall on the 27th of November and Cyber Monday on the 30th of November. That's important because just 2 years ago in 2018, Black Friday was a week earlier than that. I think it was the 22nd or so. So essentially, if you're judging peak holiday performance, as many do, by the start of Black Friday through Christmas, we have, relative to 2018, about a week less, 5 or 6 days less, of peak holiday performance time available to us. And the same thing happened last year. In 2018, Black Friday, I believe, was on the 28th or so. And Cyber Monday actually fell in December. And so really what that means is there will be a big push to get people to condense all the same amount of shopping activity, for the most part, into a smaller time frame relative to 2018. A lot of the groundwork for this was laid last year when advertisers were trying to get people accustomed to this new time frame. Obviously, this is not necessarily in shoppers' minds. They had to be reminded, hey, don't get surprised by how late Black Friday is. Be shopping early. Don't miss our shipping cutoff dates and things like that. So there's a lot of effort spent on increasing, for instance, the amount of shopping done in the first 2 weeks of November. I believe those grew, by some accounts, about 40% year over year. So some of the groundwork has been laid, but I would expect that trend to continue a lot more strongly this year, since we have kind of this similar later Black Friday. So that's first and foremost on timing, right? Very obvious. Know when the retail holidays are going to be, and there's large differences there year to year. The second thing I want to point out is your audiences and your searcher behavior, specific to your brand, are going to change many times throughout the holiday season, and they're going to change very quickly. And so I have some bullets here. I don't want to be overly pedantic about this. I certainly don't want to, educate anyone that, wow, there are early shoppers that happened earlier in the year and then they transitioned into deal shoppers as the Black Friday deals come out. Like that's very basic stuff. The point that I'd like to make is that those transitions happen very quickly, and sometimes in the span of a day or two. You'll be dealing with early shoppers starting in late October, early to mid-November, and then the Wednesday before Thanksgiving hits, and bam, like within the space of a day or two, searcher behavior is completely different. Now you're dealing with prime deal shoppers, people that pay very close attention to the offers on the table. Same thing for transitioning from deal shoppers into last minute shoppers, right? Depending on your shipping cutoffs for whatever you are specifically selling, it varies from retailer to retailer, but there will inevitably be a weekend, most likely, where the shoppers will wake up and say, holy cow, I've got 2 days to order this until the shipping deadline happens, and then I'll have to pay for expedited shipping. So like the behavior changes almost instantaneously, just within the span of a day or two. So that's what I also mean when I say timing is everything. You need to anticipate these very sudden shifts. And it's completely specific to whatever it is you are selling. I do not want to be prescriptive here and say the second weekend of December is when this shift happens. I can't say that. But I think these 4 categories do hold true for most every retailer out there, and being prepared for abrupt shifts and being able to kind of flip the switch on whatever new strategies you have for each audience is going to be really, really important to your success. And I'll jump down to the next slide, but I also kind of want to mention here the importance of planning out your spend in terms of when you're spending versus your competitors. So the second bullet point here, relying on last year's data more than recent data. The biggest thing from last year's data that I would recommend looking at is your auction insights. Understanding how your competitors treated their budgets, their aggressive pushes, and so on and so forth on a day-by-day basis, or at least a week-by-week basis for last year's holiday period. that's really going to inform your sense of what days are, underserved or overserved, or what weekends are under or overserved for this holiday period, so you can plan your spend accordingly. Sometimes you may want to note when your competitors have their heaviest presence, so you can match that and go head to head with them if you think your prices are superior, or your product is superior, or your audience is more is better positioned. More often than not, in my experience, you're actually going to want to map out where your competitors will be strongest, so you can get out of the way and then instead serve where they will be weakest. That has been, in my experience, even for very large budget clients, the most effective strategy is kind of hit them where they ain't, if you will. So that is the biggest point, kind of combining the timing is everything bullet with this rely on last year's data bullet. The other thing I'll say on using last year's data, a lot of accounts that I've been a part of, and I've fallen victim to this too, especially ones that use automation, heavily bias your recent results in terms of what products and what keywords you end up spending on. And that obviously is a big problem when you're coming into holiday periods where searcher behavior is very different. It's constantly shifting. Competitors are pushing and pulling and all that stuff. So I'd say make sure to be looking at the product the product makeup, the keyword makeup that was successful for you or unsuccessful for you last year. Do not rely on last month's data. Do not rely on the last 6 months worth of data, because it can be wildly different. As we know, bidding strategies, if your product or keyword kind of hits a dry spell and just doesn't perform, a bid strategy may lower bids on that until it's actually the bid is so low it doesn't have a chance to perform anymore, and it kind of snowballs, if you will, where then those keywords or products are kind of subsumed by having very low bids, never get a chance to perform again, and just kind of get lost and forgotten. If those products were a big part of what your last year's holiday performance was based around, you need to know that and be bidding those up and kind of refreshing the bid strategy to get a sense of these products will be important, maybe not last month, maybe not even in October, but in December, these will be big products. So last year's data is extremely important about that. Just other questions to be thinking about as well. And again, this is what I'm advising our teams and kind of challenging our teams to be thinking of as we plan. Thinking about things like, when did impressions spike last year? When did your engagement spike last year? Kind of mapping out when were people researching versus when were people kind of settling on their research and actually making purchases. What do audience lists tell you about your user engagement? Understanding those questions will also help you map out when to spend. And finally, Google is a great resource on this. Google can provide you week by week predictions of what search volume will look like for your product category that tend to be very helpful. Helpful both in kind of understanding how you want to position your spending for yourself, but also helpful in the competitive element where you say you can safely assume that all of your advertisers have access to this data as well, and you can kind of almost metagame what they will do kind of based on Google's trends. So that's something else that is absolutely a resource that I would recommend kind of availing yourself of. And the final slide I want to talk through, the final thing that I am kind of preaching to the team, is the very obvious note that this year's holiday season is going to be very different than preceding holiday seasons. This vision of Black Friday where you're standing in line with all of your friends and family, and everyone is rushing through the door in this big mass of people, and you're racing down the aisles. It's just not feasible, and it's not sensible for virtually any brand to accommodate this year. And brands know that and have been kind of taking a very different approach to this year's holiday deal kind of crafting. So you'll notice things like Amazon's Prime Day was postponed obviously from July, moved to the second week of October, and that was positioned as kind of pre-Black Friday, if you will, especially when you look at other brands. Target, Walmart, Best Buy, they hosted deals throughout that week and also the rest of October. I believe in Best Buy's case specifically saying these are as good as our Black Friday deals will be. So don't wait, right? Get it in early. Again, this idea of pulling some of that holiday performance earlier in the month and trying to reduce your focus on Black Friday as much as possible. If I did have one specific kind of prediction, I'm not sure exactly how much weight to put in this, but I do think personally that mobile traffic will be really, really effective on Thanksgiving Day. I don't want to underrate how much of Black Friday being a family tradition is among a lot of circles. Black Friday is something that people will, they're home for Thanksgiving, they're with their friends and family, and just making the Black Friday trips is sort of like a family tradition, if you will. That's not going to go, that urge is not going to go away, even if the physical act isn't feasible. So what I kind of envision happening, if you'll indulge me for just a little bit of like prognostication, is those people still want to do shopping in the presence of their friends and family. They'll probably be doing some sort of Thanksgiving event, whether it's virtual or maybe a limited in person, and the mobile devices are really going to take the place of everyone getting on their mobile device and kind of shopping together. Is like the pseudo Black Friday almost, if you will. I think that there's a good chance of that happening. I've seen some other outlets kind of talking about that too, and it's something that I would not be surprised at all if that turned out to be a big deal. Mobile traffic on Thanksgiving Day and Black Friday being really, really valuable and sought after. The last thing I want to say on kind of preparing for a very strange holiday season in 2020 is on budgeting. Again, this links back to timing being very important. It's really worth noting that kind of internalizing the areas in which there's extremely high unpredictability. We can make the best plans possible, but we also need to make sure that our plans are flexible enough to conform with unforeseen, performance. In my opinion, advertisers may fall into the trap this year of stretching out budget, seeing good performance in one week, but holding back budget in the expectation that, well, our deals next week will be better, so we want to make sure we fund those more fully, and holding back budget. I would caution against that tendency somewhat, and I would say in a year of extreme uncertainty, which we have, if you are ever seeing really good performance, at the present time, I would have some budget in reserve to really pour gasoline on that fire and say, hey, like we may get to the end of holiday season and say, oh dang, the last week of December turned out to be great. I wish we had more budget left. But more likely than not, you're going to say, man, that performance that was really great in the first week of December, I wish we had gone a little bit harder after that and not saved something back for an uncertain amount of performance, right? I think is always a little bit of a dicey proposition, but this year especially, with the uncertainties that I think are surrounding the whole consumer behavior, having budget in reserve to really pounce on the moment that you see good performance and not holding much of it or all of it in reserve is going to be what really drives a lot the year-over-year performance for a lot of advertisers. So those are the main points I wanted to talk through. I think, again, all of these are not specific. They're not designed to be prescriptive, but rather to be at least the beginnings of a framework for you to start planning how you will think about holiday strategy, how you will execute holiday strategy, in a pretty tumultuous 2020. So thanks for listening. If you have any specific questions, you can feel free to reach out to me or virtually anyone else at Rise Interactive. We're all here ready to help, and we're looking forward to a great holiday 2020. Thanks, everyone.